Underwriting for the Money Doctor Show is provided by Ryan and Casey Liquors, Main Street, Greenfield. Exploring the world, one glass at a time. West County Equipment Rental of Shelburne. Daily, weekly, monthly rentals. 625-6463 or on the web at westcountyequipment.com. The Franklin County Community Development Corporation. Growing sustainable businesses and communities since 1979. www.fccdc.org. Weld Communications, Marketing and Publicity. Helping businesses spread the word in the Pioneer Valley and beyond. www.weldwords.com.
There's a better life if I could be debt free, but all my money is a mystery. I was feeling overwhelmed and it was wearing thin when I knocked on the door and heard the doctor's in. Oh, the doctor's in, the doctor's in. She got the right prescription to help.
Hello and welcome to the Money Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Frances Rayam, president of Power Down Debt, a positive debt management company. And my guests today are I'm laughing already, I haven't even introduced you yet. Jay Fidanza from WHAI Radio, and Jack Baker, who's a famous musician and, can I say owner of Barrett & Baker?
Barrett & Baker. Baker Office Supply.
And Half Price Card Store.
And Half Price Card Store. And downtown Greenfield.
And downtown Greenfield. Okay, so I should say this was completely off the cuff. We didn't plan this show at all. We do plan to do a show with Jack. You were in the studio at the same time. Sparks started to fly. We said, let's talk about old radio days. Who wants to start? Jack.
Me?
He's old. You wanted to talk about old radio.
Well, you wanted to know how we promoted records in the 50s and the 60s.
I would love
and
to.
how radio was different then than it is today.
Yes.
Jay can go further with the today, but in the 60s it was wide open. There was a format, a top 40 format. But if you were anywhere near the ball game, if you were anywhere near that genre, you could knock on a door, go up to the radio station, please will you play my record? Yeah. And they would give it serious consideration, providing it was halfway decent.
You'd walk in and talk to a DJ and say,
you'd walk in and, you'd walk in and talk to the program director.
Okay.
And he had a list of about 65 records that he was playing a week. And you would beg him and cry and do record hops.
Go ahead. You know who came to the radio station to push his record? Johnny Marks, who wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, came to the radio station, came to WHAI and said, here's a song, a Christmas song I just wrote, would you play it?
Now, how long ago was it?
Well, that was when it came out, when Gene Autry sang it. That's what they used to do.
What year that was?
49?
Loretta Lynn. She had a top 20 record before she even had a record deal with a major record company. Wow. And that was another thing. Back in the 60s, you could form or 50s, you could form a label and press up the records and then put it in the back of your car with 25.
In the trunk.
I will tell you about The Last Kiss. We had a record. Harry Finfer, who was a Philadelphia record man, had Dwayne Eddy, and had a lot of 60s hits.
Arlen label, Harry Finfer,
yeah,
right?
Arlen. Well, Arlen was, Jamie, Arlen, they were all in that Philadelphia group down there. Yeah. And what were we talking about?
We're talking about
pushing records.
Having records in your trunk.
Anyway, you would put 3 or 4 records in the front seat of your car, you put them under your arm and walk into the studio and do about anything it took to get the record on. And one of the ways to get it on in the 60s was having a great band. And the Northern Lights and the Busters were a great band. They were really
very tight.
Very tight band. So if you offered them a record hop, say on a Friday and Saturday night, and you had 3 or 4 extra days to give them, Mountain Park, for instance, Pleasure Beach in Bridgeport, there was the places down in the Boston area, Revere Beach. They didn't want to look like a jerk, and they had enough clout with the radio station so that they would at least give you a week worth of play, so when you showed up, everybody knew who you were.
Yes.
And if the record was any good by that time it took off, it wasn't any good, they just threw it away and started again.
It's grassroots record marketing. Yeah.
But there was none of that today. The things are so tight that the public is the one that's getting cheated.
Shortchanged.
Because they only are putting out what these people down in Nashville or L.A. or New York want you to hear.
I agree.
And you only pick.
Formulaic.
Yes, from the. Right, Jay?
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
The thing is now playlists are so small and so tight and so formatted that there's not a lot of creativity and a lot of mixture, because they feel that, I think programmers feel that repetition is the thing. People feel comfortable hearing the same songs over and over again.
Right, and they can, and that makes them a hit. Right.
The thing is, a lot of stations don't play songs until they're hits.
Well, that's right. So how do you get, well, my question is, how do they become hits if they don't play them until they are hits?
You're right, exactly.
It's the age
Leave it up to
old
others.
There's ways that happens. But,
Well, now everything is, you know what, videos. It's videos. It's stuff on the internet.
But how do you get it on MTV?
Does MTV? I don't think MTV even does videos anymore, do they?
I don't know.
They don't do music videos anymore. They have progressed so far that now they're doing regular shows like reality shows, etc.
And of course, back when you were established star, I was lucky enough to work with Conway Twitty for a couple years.
It wasn't. And didn't you have a manager?
Yeah, I worked for
Conway Twitty's manager at one point.
Yes, I worked for Don Seed Enterprises in New York, and we had Jerry Lee, we had Conway. We had John Cash for
John Cash. Who calls him John Cash, right?
John Cash.
That's fun.
And the Fendermen. You remember Mule Skinner Blues?
Of course.
We had the Fendermen, the Greenmen, the Busters. We had I've forgotten exactly, but we had a lot of acts. And I was just very lucky. But anyway, in those days, you used to have fan clubs.
Yes.
Remember the fan clubs?
Yeah.
And Conway had a big fan club because Only Make Believe was a huge record. So when a new record would come out, you would get everybody in that fan club to start with the dial and call the radio station and start playing the record, and request the record over and over. Well, it didn't take a Rhodes Scholar to figure out that something was going on. But the point is you did about anything you could to get that record on.
Amazing. It was a machine. Huh. Now, Jay, you're a big blues fan.
Yes.
You and I talk about blues all the time.
I'm 250 pounds.
That's nominal.
Big
in
blues
disguise.
Real big blues fan.
So one of the things I wanted to ask
you like
about
the blues too, though.
I love the blues.
You have a friend in Toronto.
I do have a friend in Toronto.
Who's a blues?
Susie Vinnick. She did the theme song for our show.
Yeah.
She's a Juno nominee 3 times and a bunch of other stuff. She's great. Really
Did
great.
you come from Toronto?
No. I just happened to meet her by happenstance.
Toronto was a good place to play. I played Toronto.
You did?
Yeah,
When
I played
did you play
a place.
Toronto?
1963, 1962. A place called La Crocador.
La Crocador.
La Crocador, that's what it was called up there. And we liked to go up there because they always had nice ladies up there.
Oh, very pleasant.
Absolutely.
Very well mannered.
Yeah, absolutely. So Windsor, Ontario was another place. That was in Hamilton. Those were on the
At least you weren't playing burgs, you weren't playing these little
I played some of those places too. Yes, you start out. You
know what?
You have to do.
When you started out, somebody mentioned to me at breakfast this morning you used to play the Quonset Hut.
Yeah,
what
the Quonset Club.
What is the Quonset?
Oh, but the best place was the Hatfield Barn. That was right down.
Oh, the tobacco barn.
No, the tobacco barn was on Route 5. Right. The Hatfield Barn was in Hatfield itself, and it was a 12-bent tobacco barn.
No kidding.
12 bents, if you know what I'm talking about. Somebody down the way, they would know. Anyway, this thing had the tobacco open doors on the side, and we used to put 1,400 kids in there on a Wednesday night.
Nice.
And we had to, remember those little clickers you had? You could buy them at Baker Office Supply to count.
That's right.
We never could get.
Buy them at Baker Office Supply, those counters.
Yeah, the little.
Oh, I don't know if they have them now, but we used to click.
But go in and look.
You could ask,
right. We had.
That's right.
Excuse me. We had to have a guy on the front desk to make sure that the guy was giving us the right count, because we got paid by how many people coming in there. So we knew what was coming in there.
That's amazing.
But that was just, I played in Texas, I played in Arkansas and Mississippi, I played where they have joints. And I'm telling you, this Hatfield Barn was a lot of fun and a strange experience on a Wednesday night in 1969.
Wednesday night?
On a Wednesday night.
Wow, 1,400 kids on a Wednesday night.
This is in the summertime.
Oh, okay. Let me ask you this. Why do you think there are no places like that now?
Well,
Why do you think there's no place to go and hear a band? There's not that many places.
We were talking about that.
Is it because of the
alcohol? Is, I mean, in those days it was 21, but I'm not going to say over the air, but there's a lot of people that were in that place that weren't 21.
We're supposed to be, of course, right?
And I guess there wasn't the there was the ABC. I mean, I was at the top of the list with the ABC. They weren't very happy with me.
There was always a guy.
But I was 19, 20 years old. I wasn't 21, and you weren't supposed to be in those places. But no one really stepped up.
I had the same thing years ago. I played in a small band for about 6 years, and I was way underage. I was 14, 16 years old, and I was playing in clubs like that. And that was always a problem. You know, they had to make sure that I wasn't drinking. They had to make sure that I didn't have access to alcohol and all of that.
Well, some of the lights, excuse me, some of the lights were over 21. So you could send him up to the bar.
The lights, the northern lights,
We call them the lights.
The lights, I like that, yeah. So where I was headed with that actually was when I listened to your music, I heard blues background in it. I don't know if you ever saw it that way or not, but have you guys ever talked about that?
Remember, we started in 1956. Music, rock and roll was a young teenage idea in 1956, but it was all based on rockabilly, that Memphis sound, that Western Tennessee, three-chord progression blues, and it was also, there was a lot of influence with the lights with country music. I mean, I was a huge country music fan.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's what I played, yeah.
Alan Orkins, who was a little bit older than us, and was influenced by country music. So anything that we wrote had to have that basic idea. So there's a lot of blues, a lot of three-chord progression, blue suede shoes type of thing in the light music.
I'm a firm believer that rock and roll, well, I know rock and roll is the child of the blues.
Yeah, I don't think anybody doubts that.
I mean, it just moves.
Maybe somebody doubts that. But,
and even country, like, you know, the old stuff. Hank Williams is one of my favorite blues artists. You know, Hank, you know, it's like you listen to that and you go, holy cow, it's so simple. And so, but so deep.
How anybody at 21, 22, 23 years old with a 5th grade education could write the words that Hank Williams wrote in those songs is totally beyond me.
He was the first artist I got hooked on. Somebody gave me a Hank Williams Sr. record, and that's what got me going in country.
I got a picture of him in our breezeway, black and white picture.
And you know, I mean,
what a tortured man, though.
Well,
that's how he wrote those words. But
I don't know that he was that tortured. You know, Hank had a problem.
Oh, I think he should. Maybe at his own hand.
He could use that
as
a launching pad.
As a launching pad.
But you know, when you get music like that, it's completely timeless. For instance, Hank did Cold, Cold Heart. Norah Jones, not very long ago, recovered Cold, Cold Heart. And it's incredible. It's completely different than he did it, but it's a great tune. You had a song that happened with. Somebody just recovered Bust Out.
Oh, they've been the Bust Out is all over that internet. If you go to it, and I don't even know these groups because I'm 72 now, Jay, and I'm sort of
out of it.
Well, a little bit out of it, and
everybody says you are
really
out of it. Yeah.
Well,
we're all out of it. That's why we're here.
He bought me breakfast the other day. He's a great guy, folks.
Well,
do I owe you for that?
Yeah, you do, Jay.
Because I'm getting $250 for doing the show.
You could have given him the banana from the earlier show.
He might get the rest of it.
Right.
But Hank Williams, Conway was into Hank Williams big time, and into Elvis, and that's the other thing. Elvis in the original Milk Cow Blues and that kind of stuff was late 50s, early 50s, middle 50s anyway, and that was different than when they bought that Mama Thornton song and did You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog.
Yes.
I mean, that was Chet Atkins, that was the people that had been experienced in Nashville for years, and they took their experience from a young guy. I mean, his young guy from Memphis brought him in there, and he was smart enough to hold on to it and do it, and the result was Elvis Presley. And Conway, those guys all thought Elvis was the top of the list. Right?
Yeah, I think everybody thought that for sure.
But then you know, Hank Williams was right next to it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you think if Hank Williams had lived, what would he have stayed where he was? What would he? What do you think?
Well,
he would have done?
I think so, but
same thing. Yeah.
W.S. Hollins, Flute Hollins, was Johnny Cash's drummer for years down there, and we were down there with Travis LeDoit.
Oh, Travis LeDoit, no kidding.
And
talk about just bringing us into the future for a quick moment.
I'm living
Travis
in the
LeDoit,
past most of the time. Anyway,
I like it.
We were down there with Travis, and we stayed at Flute's house. And the conversation came up about Hank Williams. And he said if Hank had lived, he wouldn't be as big as he turned out to be. But I don't buy that at all. I mean,
I don't know. I don't think we saw. I don't think we touched the tip of the iceberg on what Hank Williams had.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my heart fell at your feet. I'm so lonesome I could cry. I mean, how in the world could you? You know, the guy just had something special.
Over.
Right.
Yeah, great stuff.
But a lot of those songs too, like "Move On Over," and some of those songs had been. Country music would take the same tune and add different words to it.
Yeah,
and
recycle them.
Recycle the song.
Yes.
And some of those were pretty much recycled. But Hank, what he did was...
I keep hoping they'll find some unreleased,
well, they did.
more and more like they do with Hendrix. They keep finding these things that Hendrix did, and releasing.
Is it Mother's Flower? Did this show on WSM in Nashville, and they recorded the show and they put it on acetates. And when WSN moved to another location from Nashville into another place in Nashville, they went up in the attic and they found 25, 30 of these acetates that were stashed up there. No one knew what they were. They put them on at the Hank Williams show with Mother's Flower, Mother's Milk Flower or something of that nature. And they went after them. I mean, they took them and they mastered them and they cleaned them all up. And and Jet Williams, that's Hank's daughter in another marriage, and her husband was a lawyer, and they put it out with Hank Jr. and they've done very well with it. I guess they sold thousands and thousands of them.
Wow. But for those of us who don't know what acetates are in this day and age, explain that for people, because now we deal with discs, CDs, that's it.
Acetates were a way to cut a demo that you had done and play it on a regular record player. They were just nothing, I don't know what they call that. It wasn't tar, but it was acetate, and they just cut it with like you cut a needle.
Like a real needle, like an original wax.
Make a groove right into it.
But they lasted, they weren't the best reproductions you could get. If you got 4 or 5 plays out of them.
Really?
Yeah. Then the treble and the record would go down, 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 down. And when you get down to about the 50th play, you'd hear the thing just like you would in a telephone. Yeah, right.
Yeah. That'd be great. Do you remember acetates? Did you play acetates?
Excuse me?
A lot of your ads came in acetates.
Yeah, a lot of them did. I've seen acetates, but I didn't work with acetates. I worked with records when I started.
Should I believe him? Do I believe him?
I got some at the house. I'll bring an old acetate in from Bell Sound, 1960.
Silver, right?
No. They look like a regular 45.
Did they look like a regular 45? Okay.
Well, now I do believe you.
Okay. See, there you go. I needed to do that to show that I didn't.
They look like a regular 45, only they would cut it right then and there.
Wow,
it wasn't pressed like you did a 45.
They just cut it,
you know what?
They didn't last as long.
You know what? A perfect example to see that in action is if you ever watch the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? When the Soggy Mountain Boys are at
Soggy Mountain Boys or Foggy Mountain Boys?
No, Soggy.
They're Soggy Mountain Boys.
Soggy Bottom Boys. Soggy Bottom Boys.
I don't want to know.
Listen, are at a small radio station, and they're live, and while they're performing live, the guy's cutting an acetate.
No kidding.
So if you ever see, it's a George Clooney movie.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a classic.
Speaking of movies, when Jack was coming in, I could not avoid the comparison to That Thing You Do. Did you ever see that movie, That Thing You Do, with Tom Hanks?
Oh, yes, Tom Hanks movie.
That you are That Thing You Do.
It was about a group that has like one hit.
Have you not seen it?
And the drummer wears sunglasses.
You have to see it.
You
It's your
should see
story.
it. You'd like it.
It's so similar.
It's about running all over the place
But that's
and
what they
promoting
do.
their record.
Well, that's how you did it in the 60s, and I guess I'm still stuck in a lot of ways into the 50s and the 60s. I mean,
You know
not
what
sure
I
that's a
like,
bad
though, about
thing.
talking to him? It's the same as talking with Phil Dee.
Yeah, because he grew up in-
because he grew, and even Aaron Mintz.
Yes.
Because Aaron grew up with people like Norman Greenbaum and Alan Wilson of Canned Heat in Boston.
10 years later.
Canned Heat, yeah.
But the thing is the people that he's met.
Yeah.
You know, you sit and talk with Phil, and you talk with Jack. Jack says, "Oh, I was with Dick Clark," and he said, and Jackie Gleason walked by.
John
and said,
Cash,
you know,
right?
and Phil Dee will say, "Well, when I was down in Mountain Park, and I was sitting there with Jerry Lee Lewis, and I was sitting there with the Beach Boys, and I'm going, what?
Yeah, so
it's awesome. I'm like the guy who knew Johnny Cash.
Well, you know what's really sad?
What?
I'm the woman who knows the guy who knows the guy who knew the guy who was Johnny Cash. And I have to say, oh, you know, when I was in the studio with Jay Fidanza the other day. So there you have it.
There you go.
Well, you know, I really never knew Johnny Cash. Jerry Lee was on the phone more. Dick Clark was on the phone more. Conway, I did know. I mean, Conway, I liked Conway.
Will you
Favorite
tell her,
story.
I wanted to have him tell her about what type of person Dick Clark was.
Oh.
And his office.
Oh, the office.
Because you think, what do you think of Dick Clark?
We were asked and invited down to do the Dick Clark show.
Yep.
So, I mean, I had in my mind what the Dick Clark show. I mean, I couldn't believe. I thought I died and went to heaven. And we had done a lot of TV, but in those days there were local dance party programs all over the country.
Sure.
Channel 40 had a dance party. Channel 3 had a dance party. Channel 8, Channel 4 in Boston. Everybody.
They still have a polka show here on GCTV.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, you know, Channel 3, for instance, in Hartford had really great studios. I mean, they had this nice, clean dressing room with lights and the whole thing, and you sat in the chair and looked yourself in the mirror, and you died and went to heaven about 40 times. Like, so anyway, we got down to Philadelphia. We were going to do a lot of record hops in Philly and in southern New Jersey and some of the other places around that weekend. And so they asked us if we'd want to be on American Bandstand, and we said sure. And I had this vision of what American Bandstand was. I got in first of all, they wouldn't let us go down there by ourselves. They had a police escort to take us down. And I began to see why this was down on South Street in Philly. And it was a rough area.
Wow.
And we got into this place, and this gentleman made us out at the parking lot, I believe, and brought us through the winding buildings and inside the building. And he wanted to meet Dick Clark, because I had never met him before this. And this little...
Many of us haven't, Jack. Yeah.
And shan't.
This room was the size of a closet.
Oh, yeah.
His office. Right?
His office. I mean, I figured we were going to have this office that was huge and had and this little closet that he had, stuff piled up on every side of the door, the back, the bookcases, everything. He got up out of his desk. He shook hands. He was very nice to us. Very nice gentleman. But what you saw on TV, what, by the way, was all black and white in the Philadelphia days.
Sure.
So the walls were dirty. The walls were no more than the size of this place, and probably wasn't as big, and had those gymnasium, remember, like you had
the bleachers.
They pulled out of the wall, and then all these kids would be let in at 1 o'clock in the morning, because this was all done on Sunday night.
Wow.
And you taped it on Sunday night. They ran Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And most of them were taped all week long, because he was doing the Caravan of Stars thing.
Amazing.
And it just the image that you got at home was not the image that was there, and that was a big surprise.
Well, as a matter of, he looks like Ben Affleck, and I look like Johnny Depp, and you can see that what TV does to you.
Yeah.
Makes us look different.
It's a distortion,
Yeah.
Well,
I look like Minnie Pearl. If you just tuned in, our guests are Jay Fidanza and Jack Baker, and we are chatting about, it's too much fun. I shouldn't be allowed to do this. It's too much fun. So back to name dropping. So not that we were name dropping. You knew Conway Twitty. His manager was your manager at one point. Have you two guys met any of the same people?
I don't know.
I
Have we met any of the same? Well,
Jay has music names just coming off the top of his head.
I've never met. I've really never. I mean, I interviewed Richie Havens on the phone, the lead singer for Jay Giles, Peter Wolf. I mean, I haven't. You know, I met a lot of people down at the Iron Horse because you can walk into you can walk right into the dressing room. There's no door on the dressing room when you go into the bathroom. Junior Wells and fellows like that, but Jack has got me. Well, I'm a minor labor.
We were in a different. We were 20 years, 30 years before that, and I really didn't know when they hooked us up with Don Seat. I didn't really know who Don Seat was. I mean, I knew he was a big record man, and when Harry Finper, you know, I was in high school, and they used to call me Dwayne in high school because I played the guitar. This is at Smith Academy.
No, I'm sorry. You have to explain that.
Dwayne Eddy.
Because you played the guitar. Okay, Dwayne Eddy. Okay. Well,
all right. Well,
told you I wasn't born yet. Okay.
So Dwayne Eddy had several big hit records, and they used to call me Dwayne, they put the name of my band in their high school yearbook. Well, 3 years later, I was working for Dwayne Eddy's manager on Dwayne Eddy's manager's record label, and it all happened. It happened fast enough where you really didn't have time to look back and see
how it happened to you, right?
Until 40 years later, when you sit in your bed and you're thinking at night, what in the world ever happened? And Conway was another thing. Conway and I sat in a Sage restaurant in New York. It's on 7th Avenue in New York. And we were wondering, this is 1964. Only Make Believe had come and gone. This was 3 or 4 years later. And you looked at the Billboard's top 100, and the top 10 were all Beatles, wondering how in the world you're going to beat that, because they were just, you know, they were a whole different ballgame than what we had been into. And, you know, how he was going to support his 3 kids, and how he's going to pay his house mortgage, and all of this. And, you know, the guy had a fabulous voice, and I knew he had a fabulous voice, and I knew that he sang great country because I did a demo session with him down at Muscle Shoals in Alabama. So I knew what happened when he sang over that microphone. I mean, the speakers just vibrated. And 30 years later, I mean, he had a string of country records, #1 country record, and no one else had as many as he had. You know, and you just wonder how in this all happened.
You both had an incredible love for music, and you both found a way to stay in the music business.
I've always said that disc jockeys, and I think I said this to you, and you kind of said, no, disc jockeys are only lazy musicians. We're musicians who didn't have the patience or the wherewithal to go through what you did. So we get our glory from playing your music. And that's about as close as I can get.
But you do, I mean, you eat, live and breathe music. I mean, I come into your studio and you start talking about who you saw in concert or whatever.
But that's me at the studio. If you see me at my house, and I'll tell you about my riding mower if you want.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there is more to Jay Fidanza, and I'm not that musically.
True, you are complex.
I'm not that musically knowledgeable. I mean, this guy is like a.
Well, no, I mean, I am not. I still had that music and what I could do with the faders and my board and my microphones and my studio.
He's gone to the next level.
We want to talk more about that. We're going to have you back for a full show and talk about the recording and all of that. Yes? Thank you both for being here. Jay Fidanza and Jack Baker, thanks for watching another episode of The Money Doctor. Until our next chat, keep it positive.
Underwriting for The Money Doctor Show is provided by Ryan and Casey Liquors, Main Street, Greenfield. Exploring the world, one glass at a time. West County Equipment Rental of Shelburne. Daily, weekly, monthly rentals. 625-6463 or on the web at westcountyequipment.com. The Franklin County Community Development Corporation. Growing sustainable businesses and communities since 1979. www.fccdc. Weld Communications, Marketing and Publicity. Helping businesses spread the word in the Pioneer Valley and beyond. www.weldwords.com.
There's a better life if I could be debt free, but all my money is a mystery. I was feeling overwhelmed and it was wearing thin when I knocked on the door and heard the doctor's in. Oh, the doctor's in, the doctor's in. She got the right prescription to help you win. Oh, the doctor's in, the money doctor's in.